Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Today we are going to listen feedback presentations by Ibu Dewi Fortuna Anwar, legal development figure in Indonesia, political science, and also public figure as well. So, for those who are not Indonesian, probably I need to introduce Dewi Fortuna Anwar. She is a research professor at the Center for Politics, National Research and Innovation in BRIN, Indonesia Research and Innovation Agency. But she has also in variety of duties. Bu Dewi used to be the vice president of the Indonesian president, GAIB, and also I think that she is now. She used to be deputy secretary to the vice president of the Internasional. Ibu Dewi obtained her PhD from Universitas and MBA completed in University of Bandung. So basically, the purpose of our event today is to listen to Ibu Dewi due to her vast background in political science and experience about how Muslim political activities with
we are able to get her feedback, what area need to be improved, etc. And I think that you are going to benefit as well from this, from her explanations about the achievement of Muslim politics.
So I think Bu Dewi, you will have like 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and then it will be followed with questions and answer sessions. And then I think that you can ask questions related to how to publish academic article in journal, what quality journal is like, and etc. And I think that Bu Dewi is going to welcome any questions that you ask her. Yeah. And without further ado, I think the floor is yours, Bu Dewi.
Should I sit or should I say what is your recording? What is the best angle for the video? What is the best angle? Should I stand or should I sit here?
Sitting is okay.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Anwar and Dr. Rifki. It's a pleasure to be here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I've long wanted to visit because, as I told Mas Han and Mas Rifki, I was involved before the conception. So before the conception of this Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia, at that time I was serving as already as deputy to the vice president, first vice president Budiono, and then president SBY, and then vice president Yusuf Kala, and then president Joko Widodo. Before that, of course, I was President Habibie. If you remember, the Indonesia and Southeast Asian Muslims are regarded as being peripheral to the center, to the core of Islamic society, Muslim society in the Middle East. So somehow, how we practice Islam here in this part of the world, and Muslims here are regarded as not good enough and not having the necessary self-confidence to speak up. There is this feeling, of being center-peripheral relationship, and people in this part of the world tend to look to the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. And then when we had the threats of terrorism and so on, then we had this terrible crisis. Hello. Yeah. So we have this existential crisis in the Muslim world, where Islam and being Muslims are often being associated directly with terrorism. So that was, I remember when there were debates within the government circle, and then the desire to offer a different version. If you remember, during President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono's first foreign policy speech in 2000, he talked about the international identity of Indonesia. Indonesia is a country where Islam, democracy, and modernity go hand in hand. And in fact, later on, decided Indonesia is a country where Islam, modernity, democracy, modernity, and women empowerment go hand in hand. So this is part of the identity that we want to project. Now, there is a new self-confidence about Indonesia's political system, about that we can share to the rest of the world about how we manage our societies in a Muslim-majority country, but Islam should not be equated simply with radicalism, violent extremism, terrorism, and so on. And then the idea was, we need to showcase our political development, our social progress, our democratic offerings, our dynamic economics, our vibrant civil society, our empowered women and active women in society. So the idea was that, we need to showcase this, and we need to turn Indonesia into a new centers of excellence for the studies of new, not necessarily just Islamic thought only, but studies about Islam and modernity. And that was the idea behind that. So I was privileged to be part of that early discussions with the late Professor Azman Basra and Professor Komarudin Hidayat. And it took a long while because finding this right space, the right land, it's not that easy, because land is scarce, especially the one with a big enough space. And this used to belong to TV Arban, the Indonesian television. And as you know, trying to take something out from another, even from another government agency, is not that easy. It took a long time, and then trying to find a way. So this is really a tremendous achievement that within a short time, from the conceptual note to the blueprint of the idea to having this university here standing and having all the international students and then having this journal being published. And I think that is really, you start from being conceived, being born, and you don't crawl, you start walking and running, and now you try to fly. Yeah, with this journal. So this is the tremendous achievement. So I personally, I would really like to congratulate everyone involved. The chief editor, Pak Philip, and Pak Jamari, and then the managing editor, Marfan, and all the rest of the team, for this ambitious project to publish this journal. I read the review from stakeholders, and I said, this is a crowded market. It is not easy to have a journal that can actually sustain itself long enough to achieve good standing. And once it achieves good standing, then it is snowballing. Usually it would take 3 to 5 years at least to get the grade, whether you're considered to be credible enough. But in that 3 to 5 years, it's quite often it is extremely difficult. I've been there. I've been at LIPI, we have journals. When I was overseas, yes, we have journals. It's extremely difficult. In the beginning, you can have good articles, but then after that, the steam just ran out. You cannot publish right on time, and the policies go up and down. The editors, find that they're distracted by other things. Then in the end, you might achieve a certain rank already, but then you lose it. Because once you miss the time where you're supposed to publish, or you miss, or some of the articles are not up to par, you can lose it. So I really would like to congratulate this journal for looked at all of the publications, the first one until now. It has been consistently good, very good. Some of the articles are outstanding, which gets to be published easily in a Q1 journal. So we have to become congratulated that you have been able to attract some of the avant-garde research, original research to this journal. I would say that the publication has at least 3 major purposes. First, the Muslim Politics Review could act as a flagship for the youth of life, strengthening the university's identity as a center of excellence. So I don't know, is there any other journal? Yeah, so you're competing, but I think that this is one of the flagships for the university, particularly for the Faculty of Social Sciences. It is, of course, the journal is always a very important platform for exchanging intellectual ideas. Relating to the focus of the journal, it states that the focus of the journal is the multifaceted relationships between religion and political and socio-economic development of Muslim states and societies. It is also an important forum for developing scholarly networks across the globe, particularly between scholars from or focusing on Muslim majority countries, as well as on issues faced by Muslims in multiple fronts as minorities. So it's not just about Muslim majority countries or scholars focusing on that, but the book review about overall problems faced by Muslim minorities in France, for example. It's an interesting example because Muslim diasporas are all over the world, in Western Europe, in Australia, in the United States, in Canada, and so on. So articles about how they relate to the minority-majority complex, for example, would be very, very interesting as well. And increasingly, I look at the fact that the journals mostly accept articles from PhD students and from emerging scholars. So it is a very important platform for showcasing the research of these emerging scholars and postgrad students. And because of that, I think, of course, PhD students are, of course, they come up with new ideas, new theories. They are into frontier research. So this is really important. I'm going to do a bit of a review of the 6 journals. So I'm impressed with the quality of the journals in this first publication, volume 1, number 1, 2022, which published solicited articles from invited researchers, like Professor Tori, like Professor Sakumajani, and so on. And of course, they did not go through the peer review process, but they are clearly of high quality standards, and their names are, they're a big attraction in themselves. And the articles published in the first volume really focus on various aspects of Islam, Muslims, or religion from a theoretical, empirical, and comparative perspective, but with a heavy focus on politics. And they serve as templates for the subsequent volumes of the journal. And also, like other journals, the NPR also publishes book reviews, which I think is very, very important as well. The volume 1, number 2, 2022, is the first one that started with the review process, and it published 6 very interesting articles, and subsequently, I think the decision is to publish 6 major articles. And the articles all focus on Muslim-related issues from at least 4 countries, from Indonesia, Turkey, Malaysia, and Egypt. And most of the writers were not yet well-established scholars, so some of them are emerging scholars, PhD students. Volume 2, number 2, 2023, the foreword highlighted, now this is important, that highlighted the importance of focus and scope to distinguish one journal from another. So, what is the distinctive characteristic of a particular journal from the other? And stresses that the NPR focuses on the multifaceted relationship between politics and other aspects of human life in the Muslim world. And then it is open to all disciplinary backgrounds. Now, this is going to be much more challenging than if the scope of the journal is simply geographic. Now, for example, you have contemporary Southeast Asia, or journals of Pacific Review, or international journals of Asia-Pacific affairs, or international affairs. When you talk about international affairs, then anything that has to do with international relations or any parts of the globe could be accepted. Or if it is contemporary Southeast Asia, anything to do with Southeast Asia that is contemporary and not history could be accepted. It could be politics, it could be IR, it could be anthropology, it could be sociology, it could be economy. Economics usually they have their own journals, but more or less political economy for example. It is a big net, But here the identifier is Muslim societies. And this volume number 2 published 4 articles which do deal specifically with Muslim-related issues, such as including terrorism. But the other 2 articles are more general, related to political development and democracy, and does not necessarily focus on Islamic politics. It talks about the challenges faced by Muslim societies in developing democracy, without necessarily focusing on religion and politics. Now, volume 2, number 2, 2023 also has several articles with strongly Islamic or Muslim flavors, while others are more general. And here we begin to see a shift. So the earlier 3 publications, the identifier is this Muslims. But beginning from volume 2, 2, number 2023, we already see a combination. So there are some articles which, stress this Muslim society's challenges, whether it's from sociology or political economy, and so on. But there are also articles on foreign policy, which is not necessarily directly related to being Muslim. It's not about how Muslim societies deal with the Palestinian issue, or how Muslim societies respond to the Western policy of Islamophobia, for example. But one article dealt with the global maritime problem of Joko Widodo, in which it could be published in any journal. It doesn't have, So we begin to see this widening. So we can have discussions about this later. And the attraction of this article is that there is an article, very interesting article, but most of the articles are from less well-established scholars, but there's one by Professor Internasional, a very thought-provoking article titled Before Westphalia, Imagining an Alternative Asian Globalization. And this could be a model for that for each journal we could have some of the staff structure that is not. It could be solicited, invited articles. And then volume 3, number 124. And this I have big question marks with on. The forward highlights the strategies to attract articles, among others by inviting the best scholars from their respective fields to act as peer reviewers. Now I'll comment on the publication of the list of reviewers later. It also highlights the fact that most of the contributors are PhD candidates from reputable universities worldwide. Most articles in this volume also relate to the focus and scope of MPR, namely Muslim societies and their varied dimensions. Now, this volume, which I found very interesting, is published in insightful book review about France, which stresses secularism and religious freedom, but has a low-body women wearing burqa and niqab. So, this kind of book reviews, I think, should be solicited. I've often been invited to do book reviews, where, it is not only the recipient of people trying to do book reviews, but I think that it should be editorial decisions, which books you want to review, which will support the theme of that particular journey. Yeah. So because sometimes that is a way of inviting established scholars to write for your journal as well. And then volume 3, which is the subject of our discussions now. Yeah. Volume 3, number 2, 2024. It stresses the international nature of the NPR with its diversities of countries and authors. Yeah. And the topics cover Muslim majority countries. Here is Pakistan, Bangladesh, Libya, Turkey, and Indonesia, as well as one article on ASEAN. The articles cover the fields of social and political sciences as well as international relations. Now, most of the articles here, I would say 5 of the 6 articles, fall under the focus and scope of the NPR, namely affecting Muslim society, including articles which relate to international relations on Libya, a case of faith rehabilitation, the biopolitics and geopolitics of military intervention in Libya by Martin Robson, which I find very interesting and I learned a lot too, because I'm not really that familiar with the writings of Michel Foucault and about issues of biopolitics and so on. So, and the case of how the liberal country, Western liberal countries, are trying to shape, to integrate societies by making them likable and not dangerous. So it's a very interesting article. But the article on power, norms, and trust, the interrelated factors impacting ASEAN and management of South-China Sea disputes, by Rifia Seri, offers a challenge here. This article is very interesting. I think it's very good. It's an original research article from a PhD student, and it offers an interesting perspective on the difficulties faced by ASEAN in trying to resolve the South China Sea dispute. However, the article focuses on ASEAN and China and highlights the role of China, Cambodia, and the Philippines in the case study of the 2012 ASEAN failure to issue a joint communique during the Cambodian chairmanship fall way outside the scope and focus of the NDR. Now, this is an interesting development of the NDR, and this is a widening of its scope beyond issues specifically related to Muslim societies. Now, I'm not going to make comment on if this is a good thing or bad thing. This is clearly an editorial decisions. Clearly, if you want to get as many interesting articles as possible, it should be inclusive. But you need to go back to the forward, to your own mission statement, that the scope and focus are about Muslim societies. Now, and that the scope and focus are necessary to distinguish one journal from another. Now, if in the end you will accept any good article that covers Southeast Asia, or or the Middle East, or whatever, but the issues do not really specifically address the challenges of Muslim societies, then are you watering down? Are you diluting the focus and scope? That is an editorial decision, or you can say, we do need to widen, but we have limited to maybe one article per volume. 5 articles that do adhere to the scope and focus, but maybe we can accept one article that could be more general. That is an editorial decision. And now to the comments and suggestions. I think the NPR generally follows the standard of good practices of international journals. We have international, besides the editorial board, we have international editorial board, we have clear instructions and guidelines for the authors, we have double-blind peer reviews. But, and this is, I'm a member of the editorial board of a number of journals. For example, I'm a member of the Contemporary South Asia, Asian Politics and Policy, Language Journal of the Global South, and so on. Not in the published version, but in the website. The NPR also publishes a list of reviewers. And I think that this is not usual practice for high-ranking international journals. Blind peer reviews mean that the reviewers must be totally anonymous. Authors should not be able to play a guessing game of who the reviewers from the published list are doing the review. So by publishing the list of reviewers, you are compromising the blind review, the anonymity. And I checked, when I saw this, because I'm a researcher, so when you ask me to review, I review the title, I review the guidelines, I review the mission statements, I review everything, yeah? And I noticed that everything follows good practices, but the one that is an anomaly is when you publish the list of reviewers. This is not done, yeah? Because moreover, I've been asked to review a lot of articles, and quite often, because sometimes I don't feel that I am competent to review it, or maybe I don't have the time, or maybe that I'm just not interested. But when I decline or say that I'm unavailable, usually there is a follow-up request. Do we have someone to suggest to review this? That means that reviewing is a dynamic process. So it is not, you don't only have, we have 10 people in your stable or reviewers, and then you only ask those people. In fact, it can expand. And when someone who you invite is not available, he or she may recommend somebody else. So the reviewing is often dynamic. So having a published reviewer is not good practice, and having a rigid number of reviewers is also limiting yourself, because reviewing is dynamic and you could snowball. People can say, I'm not an expert on this particular issue, but so and so maybe, So rather than publishing the list of reviewers, it might be a good idea to increase the number of international board of editors, or maybe add another category, international advisory committee. So people that you want to put in the list of views might add them, maybe add another category, international advisory committee, or just add the list of international board of editors. Some of whom could be invited to reviews from time to time. In fact, that's what happens. If you are sitting in an capacity, you're often the first person that the chief editor will pick. But you're not published as reviewers. And so I would suggest that the first thing that you do is remove the list of reviewers from the website. Yeah? I know that it's not there, but when you go to the website, it's there. And then how do you attract more contributions so that the FDR could carry out, could accelerate the process of ranking, so that you didn't foresee a future, you can put scopus. I think that you need to have sustained good quality for 3, 4 years, or how many years is it?
At least for editions.
For editions, yeah. So you're up for.
We already applied to Stockholm. However, they said that it's going to be delayed until July 2010.
Yeah. Okay. So, but to increase the number, the attraction. For example, I have to be honest with you. I am a research professor at BRIN. Now, before BRIN, LIPI already published a list of journals, and they collate the rankings of all journals, and then they publish journals with with rank, high quality, mid, T1, T2, or no scopus or no rank, Jakarta. And certain categories of researchers can publish in certain journals only. You can go up, but you cannot go down. Now, this has been adopted by BRIN. So for myself, as Politik-BRIN or research professor, I can write 20 articles in non-scopus, it will not be counted. So when we hear scandals at universities where lecturers publish their articles in predatory journals, that means that the universities, and particularly here the higher education ministry, are not giving sufficient guidelines for where lecturers can publish and not publish. Yeah? But for established researchers and the BRIN now, I can only publish in Q1 journal. So I have to publish a minimum of 1 Q1. But now, we've been asked to publish in 3 Q1 journals a year, or in a book chapter in internationally reputable publishers. So we can't do in-house publishing. So that means that we have to be very selective where we can publish. But for students who have to publish as part of their PhDs and so on, they can publish in journals which do not really have that high ranking. And also, when we compete for funding from BRIN, they say the requirement is as long as it is in a reputable journal, it doesn't have to be ranking 1. But in order to attract good publications, certain things they can do, which I'm part of the project, for example, now. I don't know whether you've done this yet. Invite guest editors to create special editions. So all articles will, of course, still subject to peer review. For example, I have an article published in International Affairs on Indonesia and ASEAN article in the Pacific. And that was part of an edition curated by Professor Haide on Indo-Pacific. So he invited a number of well-established scholars to contribute to an article. And then we have a paper writing workshop to talk about our papers. And then we have to come back with our draft. And then all of the papers were submitted to International Affairs, but it is still subject to peer reviews. So the results of the submissions is that some were dropped Indonesia's Aging Plus Pacific Review. There's also part of also Kai Hayes as a guest editor, and he submitted a proposal to Pacific Review, which was accepted, and then we contributed also through various discussions among the guest editors and the paper writers. But then we had to submit our papers individually to the Pacific Review, and again, subject to peer review. They may reject, say, individual vision or my vision, but that is one way that we can do it. Second is you can organize special workshops. Instead of publishing it as part of the book, which is usually the case, instead of proceeding, you can try to publish it as a special edition. And again, it has to go through peer review, of course. But we can do so many other activities with that. And then to make the journal widely known, circulate and announce the new publications by email. So, I don't know whether you're doing that yet.
Not yet.
No, yeah. So, for example, the Center for Southeast Asian Studies in Kyoto University has a journal on Southeast Asia. Every time the new journal comes about, every time you publication, they will blast the news, and you'll get information about it, and also what issues that they want to track. So this, you have to be active. You must not only be passive. So you have to recruit also to attract information. So there are some of these suggestions. And my last comment is that one of the best things about this journal is that it provides for open access. So people can download the articles freely, and that will help in the citation. Yeah, so when you say Indonesia, the ASEAN South China Sea, the latest article by Soren will come out, and people will start citing it. I noticed that there are only 8 citations. I will cite some of the articles already. Yeah, so so because they're worthwhile, they're papers, good articles, and as I said, because they're written by PhD students, they're still doing research. Most of us don't do that kind of research, so they're good. The editing is generally good, but it could improve. I've noticed some typos. You need to do some typing about. Take a look at that. Now, publisher, Prof. Freddy suggested that maybe the NPR can work with established publishers, for example, Rail or something. But you need to investigate whether it's possible, whether you have to pay. And secondly, whether it means limited open access. Yeah, because when we go to this well-established publishers, they're extremely expensive, and they want you to pay. And if your idea is if you get subsidies, then why not publicize? I don't mind. You promote your own price. And I think that it has a very good future. After all, when Jakarta has a Q1 journal, and I checked the Simango, somewhere from Kudus, there's a Q1 journal. Yeah. So I'm confident that the journal will become well established. And one day, once it's become Q1, before I retire, I will be quite willing to hopefully, I might not be accepted by the peer reviews, might be rejected. But I think that the regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Dewi, very insightful talks and feedbacks. And I think you went out about Muslim Politik Review is being out of scope, and that was our dilemma, and still our dilemma, when we accepted the articles, and then there are some articles about political science related to Muslim societies, and then some very good articles about international relations. I think in the course of our publications, those two categories always come up. Article about Muslim politics and also international relations. But I also invite everyone to give your comments whether we need to focus on very strict focus on issues pertaining to Muslim world. I think that is going to be the best way to focus because anyway our title is Muslim Politik Review. We need to focus on that. And about emailing list, it is a very good idea. I think that we need to implement it, and especially in the emailing list, we need to include people who are related to our journal, whose works are related with our journal. I often posted call for paper to LinkedIn, and growing number of scholars, Muslim scholars, and non-Muslim scholars who are working in Western institutions, they are giving comments, and we have got a growing number of people who are studying and working in India, in Bangladesh, start to sending their articles, and not all of them can be accepted because many are meeting our standard. But that is really, we need to do the emailing list, and then we need to improve the scope of our journal. And I think that I've got your notes, and then we need to discuss carefully and about the reviewers. Yeah, I think that we also need to think twice. We need to have a second thought on whether we need to still put it in our online versions, because I think that it is going to be not aligning with the principle of blind review process, the blind review process. Okay, and now I invite anybody. Yep.
Maybe you can write on ASEAN.
If you want to adhere to, the Muslim society's bit, then maybe there's aspects of ASEAN about do the Muslim majority countries within ASEAN have a particular stance with each other? So that kind of thing could come up. So you can talk about ASEAN, you can talk about the UN, you can talk about international organizations. But if the flavor is, there has to be some distinctive Muslimness, and then it needs to be, you need to be much more selective. Yeah, but on the other hand, you talk about the global maritime fulcrum. It's nothing Muslim about it, but it is Indonesia, which is a Muslim majority country. So is every policy that is taken by Indonesia relevant for this? Maybe, because in Karachi, we talk about who owns the city. Yeah. So, I know, I feel sympathy for the editors.
Thank you, Bu. Now I invite questions, comments from audience. Who wishes to start? Yep, Rizky. Oh. So Rizky is a student at political science.
The one with Nanda Tukrama's article?
No, different. He is a scholar at University, President University. Yeah. She's active here. Contributing.
Professor, I want to thank you very much for your insightful speech. Perhaps my question can be formulated as follows. Would you kindly inspire us, master students, graduate students here, on the kind of themes or topics that are not just timely, but also pressing, and perhaps the time dimension would have great influence on the topic regarding Muslim politics, of course, right? Maybe you can give us some hints about the kind of questions, kind of topic that we can address on, right? I think that's my only question. If you can provide us the hints, then perhaps we can, contribute to the journal. Thank you.
You are in the process of writing your research proposal, are you?
Indeed.
I think that is really a subject between you and your supervisors. There are so many areas, when we look at the issues that have been covered by the journal, uh, and the topics, it can really cover anything. And in fact, I'm sure that when we set up this university, uh, the idea is that Muslims, the issues of Muslims is not just about fiqh. It's not just about the Rukun Islam or the Sunnah or the Ibadah, but that it has to relate to real life, real world challenge. So we have to think, how do, and bring in some Islamic perspective, because Islam, we claim Islam to be all encompassing, that it talks about not just about the afterlife, but also talks about this, this current life. So you need to bring how the thinking about Islam and being Muslim, for example, affects how we approach politics or economics, the relations between government and society, relations between various diverse communities, the relations between man and environment, the relations between states. So there are so many different dimensions. Now, for us, I'm in IR, and increasingly, international relations, it is not just talk about war and peace in the conventional sense anymore. We know about the issues of non-traditional securities already, about how, that in fact, the collapse of the Soviet Union is not brought about by war, but, by mismanagement, basically, by the lack of economic development, it was an implosion. So people began to talk about why the end of the Cold War, for example, brought emphasis on democratization and these ideas of, this liberal idea that all countries will be marching forward, using the, democracy, human rights, all the Western liberal model, for example. And then it turned out that there's another model, then there's a challenge, then everybody focused on terrorism and then the idea of nativism and so on. And we all look at that. And now, after that, we look at how, in fact, the financial crisis, the economics, could bring countries down. It's not war, but Asian financial crisis that led to the collapse of the New Order government. We thought that Suharto was there to stay, but it was not a defeat in open conflict. It was the financial, it was started with the Thai baht devaluation that led to our financial crisis here. And now, then we had the pandemic as an issue, which, brought the whole world to its knees. And now we see so many different things. And now we need to learn about not just about economics, but about technology. I have to start reading about critical minerals, about digital, about AI, and now this conflict between DeepSeek and so on. So what it means is, that the areas are widening, it's intermestic and transdiscipline. So we cannot say, I'm only going to focus on this and not on the other. Of course, when you're writing your master, you have to be much more specific. But increasingly, we need to be well-read and you need to be curious. There are no subjects under the sun now which are not important. So we find that, it is very difficult to be living in silos. I'm only in political science, so I'm only in IR, I'm only in economics, so I'm only in sociology. And now, everything touches on everything else. So there is a challenge of why being still true to your main discipline, but at the same time be informed by other disciplines. So in your case, what is relevant? It can be relevant to, if you're writing from an Indonesian perspective, you can see it being relevant from government perspective. If you want it from the government perspective, you use a state-centric perspective. What does the president want? and what is he wants to feed everybody, the children, and what are the challenges for this? One of the challenges, be careful, you might not have air condition much longer if your budget is being cut, because that's the kind of things. So the issues of the challenges, for example, of one priority over the others, and how it doesn't always have to be Muslim. When we are talking about Indonesia, it's like drinking sugared water. You don't see the sugar, but you can feel its sweetness. Yeah, so it flavors everything. Or when you're talking about the challenges of international relations, what are the issues? What is happening in America? What is happening in Gaza? The debates about the fate of the Palestinians and so on. I'm sure there'll be a lot of master thesis being written that way, and you can look at not just that, but the response of different Muslim states, how they respond to this. How is Indonesia responding to it? Is there a collective response by Muslim societies? How are members of the OIC? What is the difference between response between Turkey and Egypt, the Abrahamic Accord countries and the non-Abrahamic Accord countries? There's so many challenges, if you want to do it in the IR way. Or if you want to look about technological advancements, you can start self-criticisms. How many innovations and new creations have been originating from Muslim majority societies? If the answer is nil, why? What are the challenges? Is it why are there very few Nobel laureates from Muslim majority countries, for example? Why are the centers of excellence for technologies in India or China or the United States, not in Indonesia or Egypt, the past glories of all of these societies? What are the challenges in education that they face? And you can relate so many different things here. So I'm just throwing around ideas. Yeah. You should record it.
Okay, greetings to everyone. I am Usman Kaur from the Gambia, MA student in political science. So I believe that this journal is very important because living in a globalized world, there are a lot of misinterpretation about Islam. So I believe that this journal is going to clearly show the world that Islam is not what people perceive. For example, during 9/11, people thought that Islam is all about terrorism. So coming up with this journal is going to show the world that Islam is about peace and Islam is beyond hereafter. As you mentioned, that Islam tell us about the current world. So it's going to tell, this journal would expose us, the young ones, and people in the future as well, about what Islam stands for, about the dynamics that Islam touches. For example, you talk about the issue of Abraham Accord and other issues in Islam. So that is it. Thank you.
Yeah, and it is showing the complexities, yeah, and not reducing Muslim societies only to about Islamic religion, because Muslims are living human beings relating to societies. But it was also important, it is not about apologia. I do not want to see hagiography here. I do not want to see apologia. Explaining something in a clear way, yes, yeah, but do not be defensive. So that's also very important. Self-criticism is also very, very important. We need to admit the shortcomings about how Muslim societies are run, the issues of Muslim societies and governance and corruption. Indonesia's corruption index is up here. Every year we have the largest numbers of pilgrims going to Mecca, and people who go on Umrah and the mosques and so on. More and more people, more self-consciously being Muslims, but the corruption index doesn't go down. And then we see what is the relation between faith at the personal level and morality at the personal level and public morality. we will not steal 10,000 rupiah. But if you're working in a state-owned enterprises, it's okay. If you steal billions, that kind of public morality. And also, if you notice, you go to Japan, you don't see people littering on the road. It's clean, and you hardly ever see dustbins. You go to a night market, people don't throw stuff. They're clean. And I asked them, why is it that in Japan it's always so clean? You go to all the touristy sites, you don't see people throwing their paper, their plastic drinks, bottles, and things like that. And I asked, why is it the Japanese people very conscious about cleanliness? And you know the answer? And they said, the Shinto gods always get angry if you litter. So there is a correlation between their faith and how they behave in private and in public. In Islam, it says cleanliness is next to godliness. People throw things in public spaces. Yeah? So what is the correlation? What is the problem? So if we integrate the issues and do, for example, comparative perspectives about to what extent are different religions affecting the way we manage our environment, for example, that would be very interesting.
Izul? Izul is a PhD student with us, political science, and he's working with Lembaga Administrasi Negara.
Yes. Assalamualaikum. My name is Universitas Reza. I'm a student of FOS. I would like to ask you about the governance of the journal. Maybe some of us here, after graduating from Triple IU, they will serve as academia in which where they belong to, and then maybe they want to manage journal at their home base, maybe later on. So regarding blind peer process review, is it that necessary that we cannot publish transparently the reviewers in the blind review process? Because as my understanding, we can still publish it, but the applicant of our journal that submit their article do not know who is reviewing the journal from that list of reviewers. Please, because this is still confusing for me. Thank you very much.
So I can only answer based on best practices. Other journals, and I'm talking about Q1 journals and Q2 journals, they do not publish their list reviewers. Now, if you want to go in the route of higher ranking, it is taken for granted that high-ranking journals would have peer review process, and that it is taken for granted that the reviewers will be someone who will be competent to do the review. But it should remain anonymous. Yeah, that is what you say outstate in the introduction. The articles have to be blah 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 blah. So many words, and they will go through peer review process. If it is an academic journal, it is absolute necessity. It has to be reviewed. If it is a journal published by LAN for internal use, then you don't need to. But you do not go into Scopus.
It's like a selling point if we list the reviewers. Oh,
no,
distinguished professor like that.
No, it doesn't sell. In fact, because as I said, I'm a member of the board of many Q1, several Q1 and Q2, and I've checked. When the first thing when I looked at your website, that was what surprised me. In fact, and then I read all the forwards, and then the chief editor Philip and you wrote about this is what we are doing, and I said it's taken for granted that you will have a peer review, that you will have somebody who is qualified. You cannot ask somebody who is not qualified. to do the peer reviews. That goes without saying. But you can say it, but you do not go about publishing their names. Yeah, it is not done. It is not good. If you want to benchmark, it is not done. It could go against the MPR in the judgment of those who make judgments. I say, this is supposed to be blind review. We are compromising the blind review. But you can have 100 people in the International Advisory Board, and some of them, would act as reviews. But as I mentioned, reviewing process is dynamic. As I said, I've been asked to review, and when I don't have time or I don't feel competent, and I'm asked to suggest another name. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes, for example, this is not my area. You should ask Rifki to do it, for example, and then they ask for the email. So it's a snowballing. It becomes a widening community. While if you only have about 20 people, that means that you only go to that 20 people. You are limiting yourself. Yeah, because this process can grow. Process. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. We still have room for 2 questions. Anybody? Okay, well, you are thinking for your questions, probably because my students are required to write final papers, and they are encouraged to submit your papers to journals, at least Sintatu. And everybody who submits, this is the current regulations of Arifki. We are applying for Sinta, and according to assessment by 2 reviewers from WIN, the one who runs Studio Islamica,
Which is the Q1 journal.
Q1 journal. Another person from WIN as well. He runs another journal. So it is going to be, if it is assessed, it is being assessed right now by Kemendikbud Dikti. Hopefully that it is going to be under category at least in that Muslim Nordic Review. So the students here are encouraged, and also lecturers are encouraged to write and submit articles to the journal, and they are going to be given incentive. But starting this year, at least you are going to be given incentive if your paper appears in Sinta 2 at least. Sinta 3, we are not going to be given if Sinta 3, 4, 5, 6. So probably our students would like to know what kind of articles that interest journal editors.
They just have to be good.
Yeah. But what are the parameters of articles?
No, as I say, they sometimes it is up to the editors. Yeah, sometimes editors want to specialize. Yeah, and that's why you do not only be passive about it. You say, we want to focus, for example, on the Muslim society's responses to the new Trump policy of shutting down U.S. aid. You can say, how would the cutting off of the foreign aid by the U.S. and according to report, 42% of international aid is from the U.S. So 42% is quite significant. And they have been funding foreign aid as the soft power all over the country, including in Iran. It's apolitical. So they even give money to regimes that they don't like, to people that they don't like. Now, for example, if you say we want to look at different reactions, what are the impacts? For example, in Indonesia, you can look at various impacts. What are the funds from US aid used for in Indonesia? I think there are programs for gender mainstreaming, programs for managing climate change. There's programs for training of journalists, for example, and so on and so forth. People can look at the impacts in the different sectors. And then you can compare the impacts in different countries. Which countries are going to be most effective? Which sectors are going to be most effective? How would that relate? How would that impact on that particular sector? How would they impact on the relations between, for example, Indonesia or Turkey or Bangladesh or India, that particular, with the United States, for example? How would it impact perceptions? Issues like this, the chief editor do not just sit passively and wait for articles. You should have meetings and canvas ideas, and you can announce, we are interested in these topics. That would give the students the idea what issues that they would focus on. And that would also allow for greater coherence of the theme. And next time, maybe you want to do something else. We want to focus on democratic regression, for example. What are the factors contributing to democratic regression worldwide? You look at the international factors, domestic factors, interdomestic factors, and so on. And then you look at it comparatively. This is not Indonesian Muslim Society's journal, it's international. So you must make sure that there must be some comparative perspectives. Now, if you have articles on the same theme coming from different countries, that would allow for comparisons. So how does Turkey, the democratic regression in Turkey, democratic regression in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, why is it so difficult, for example? It's not just Muslim societies, but worldwide, or the rise of populist leaders, the phenomena of the rise of the strongman, the populist leaders, and what roles that populism or religion play in this. So if you want to decide on theme, that would actually help your students and provide themes, coherence for that. Yeah. So more work for the chief editors than just waiting passively for articles to come in your inbox.
And we still have room. Last questions, Alice. Alice, master students in climate change.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions, and also for sharing your insightful knowledge to us. I'm Alice Nurhayati from Indonesia. If you remember, I bumped into you long time ago. I was still bachelor student. I told you that you are my role model. Now here we are. You are still my role model. We are lucky to have you, research professor, to share the best practices in journals. I have two questions. One related to Muslim politics review. You mentioned earlier that we need to be true to who we are, like the mission of the journal, which is obviously, as the name suggests, it contains Muslim in it, right? But I believe it's not supposed to contain us to not deal with other issues unrelated directly to Muslim. I have an example with my prior interaction with the chief editor of NPR, the Muslim Politik Review, Pak Dr. Aan Suryana, with regard to the topic for book review. He said it should be something related to Muslim. If it is not Muslim, it is not allowed. I was thinking to myself, okay, it differentiates us from the rest of the journal, but again, it will limit the opportunity to address more issues unrelated to Muslim. So my question, how to strike the right balance between the two? To stay true to the DNA, to our differentiation, but it's also overarching and general enough and relevant, still actual for our readers. That's the first question. The second question related to my program. master in public policy. When we graduate, we are expected to produce outcome in the form of, say, policy analysis. I believe that the principles will stay the same with research, in which we uh, use all the methodology that can be verified according to the academic principles. But from your experience, so that the policy analysis would be more useful for its users, which is policymakers, government, or others, what would be the best way to present it? I mean, hear me out. As academic, we tend to um, write it in a very sophisticated way. Sometimes we will be we want to impress more rather than provide solutions that will be lasting and applicable. With that, any practical tips that you could share with, especially with MPP students, on how to present our policy brief, white papers, etc., so it will be more useful for the policymakers in utilizing those outputs from us. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is the question, and in fact, that is the question that I also raised as the subscripts. The earlier volumes have been more true to the scope and focus, but the last two volumes have expanded a bit. And this is a question, that you have to answer. Are you expanding for the better of the journal, or would the expansion would actually dilute the identity of the journal? Now, as I said, if the journal is geographic in scope, so you cover Indonesian studies, you can write about politics and about wayang and about fisheries, whatever, as long as it's about Indonesia, right? If you write about contemporary Southeast Asia, the same goes. From all disciplines, as long as it covers all Southeast Asian countries, all ASEAN countries now plus Timor-Leste, that's fine. But if you're writing for example, feminist review, they will only be interested in accepting articles that relate to issues of women. So if you submit an article about ASEAN and the South China Sea, they will say, what has it got to do with the feminist review? You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, this is called Muslim Politics Review. I was thinking, how would you go about it if there is a Christian politics review? Would a Christian politics review means that everything that is covered, all countries that are majority Christians, or you say, don't say Christian, say Catholics review, Catholics politics review. Would it mean that everything that deals with countries that are majority Catholics will be covered, and only about that? Or could it mean something else? We have our neighbor, the Philippines, is a Catholic country. Is everything to do with the Philippines, including the Philippines policy in the South China Sea, would be considered to be issues related to Catholicism, to Catholic societies? Or when we talk about Catholic societies, we deal with the challenges, for example, the view of Catholic societies regarding human reproductive program issues, about the role of the church in governance, or how are patriarchy affecting women empowerment. I would think when you're talking that there is something Catholics about it, comparing Italy and Ireland and the Philippines and Brazil, for example. How do they manage the particular thing? But it's not just about everything to do with Brazil and Italy and the Philippines and so on. It has to have some elements that relates to the Catholic religion, the societies. Otherwise, we'll be just talking about, everything under the sun. So when it comes to Muslim societies, you have to think, is it relevant to the core? I think that it is still possible to have one article, for example, that is an outlier, but you have to explain it in your editorial explanation, that there's one article that is not specific to this, but we feel that this is an important article, and it does cover, for example, the ASEAN region where the majority of the population are Muslims. But you need to explain it. You need to justify the existence of that particular article. So I would say that, including book reviews. A lot of books are interesting, but you need to find some books which would have salience. I noticed, the book on review about Indonesian diplomatic power, Vivanshu Sankar. There's general about Indonesian foreign policy and so on. But because Indonesia is a Muslim majority country and so on, that still, I suppose, that can still be accepted. Now, do not confuse your obligations to do policy analysis for your MA program with the policy brief that you are going to give the president, the ministers, and your echelon 1, because that's going to be completely different. Yeah. If you're going, the higher the rank of your boss, the shorter the proposal. Yeah. They don't have time. Yeah. So when I was echelon 1, I don't have time to read. So you have to give it. If I have to write something for the vice president, for example, the font has to be 14 bullet point and not more than half a page. So you just have, the bullet point, and then you can write the explanations later on. Or the most, the echelon 2 could read. You need, the most important thing, you have to have the abstract and set up all of the main ideas and the proposals at the front. Usually you write the suggestions at the back. But for policy briefs, the main ideas and the criticisms and suggestions must be laid out in the beginning, so that the first page, the abstract or the summary is very important. And then you can add 5 to 6 pages at the most, of your analysis. But the requirement here is probably more than that. So you just have to train yourself. And when you are, we cannot generalize. Some leaders do not read words, like Pak Jokowi could not read words. He liked infographics. So everything has to be with diagrams and infographics. And if you're talking to the military, they like boxes and arrows, bull corner, So you have to know who is it going to be addressed, and you have to tailor your presentations to the individuality of the person. Yeah, there's no, but the general ways, the shorter, the better, and the explanations follow. Yeah, so that is the difference between policy brief and the regular paper. You come up with the suggestions right at the front.
Okay, thank you. So let's give a round of applause.
Yeah, we have got plenty insights that was offered by Prof. Dewi. I think I cannot summarize. I think that you already get the message already, and I hope that it is going to be very useful for you. And we look forward to meeting you again in the next event of our faculty. Let us give a round of applause again to Dewi, Prof. Dewi. Masih banyak, Bu. Jadi oh gitu, oke. Oke, shall we take picture together? Pak. Mungkin di sini kali. Oh, di depan sini. Oh, ya, itu biasa lah. Ya.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let us move forward. We are taking picture together.
Kalau ini perlu di ini nggak sih? Sebab bisa jadi konspirasi. Bisa aja ya. Bisa aja ya. Ini kunci nih. Bisa kunci.